Christian parenting.
A pastor said, if Christians were doing what we should be doing, there would be 0 kids in foster care waiting to be adopted.
Yeah.
And I got home and I literally could not shake that one statement.
Hey, families, welcome back to the Call to Love podcast. I am so grateful to be joining you today as we always dive into the practical, the clinical, and most importantly, the biblical aspects of the adoption and foster care callings. Today is a really special episode that I have been so excited to share with you for a long time. The Lord has finally orchestrated a time for us to share this sweet friend of mine with you. Today, joining us for the podcast is author, adoptive mom, and founder and executive director of Project Zero, which is a nonprofit that is dedicated to finding forever families for waiting kids in foster care, specifically here in our home state of Arkansas. But we want to say this, take root all over the country, and she's going to share her heart and her story with you today. So happy to introduce you to my friend, Christie Erwin. Christie, thank you so much for being here on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. What a blessing to get to be here. I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. Yes, me too. Listen, you have worked in the child welfare space for a long time. Your heart is for kids in care, for forever families, all the things it's impacted you personally. There's so much to unpack in today's conversation. I want to be able to highlight all of the work that the Lord is using you for. But let's begin by just telling a little bit of your story. Tell us about your family's calling and when the Lord first drew your heart towards foster kids and those in need of forever families.
Oh my goodness. Well, the story is really an interesting one that came out of nowhere. Not really, but for me, it came out of nowhere. It was actually almost 33 years ago, which sounds just absolutely crazy. And at that time, I had 2 preschool boys who were 2 and 5, and then I had a baby girl who was a year old. And I was sitting in my living room, rocking my daughter, Kara. My boys were asleep in an afternoon nap. And as I looked down at her, I just, I don't know, the Lord just began to stir in my heart in a really powerful and unusual way. And I looked at her and I thought about how blessed I was, even in the chaos, to get to sit there and just rock her and love on her while she slept. And then I began to formulate this song that just rolled out of my mouth. And the Lord said to me, not audibly, but in a deep, I haven't heard it since, but he said, it's time for you, my child, to do more than just say you're pro-life. The world has seen enough marching. They've seen enough picketing. They've seen enough judgment and criticism. And what they need to see is action. And it was so powerful and profound. And when Jeff got home, I think he thought I'd been with preschoolers too long, because I said, hey, let me sing you this song. He's like, what? Anyway, so I knew that it was something big, but I didn't know what it was. And so, to make a very long story short, we just began to pray. And I thought, since I have preschoolers, 3 littles, surely it's going to be something with birth mothers or, something like that. And after about 5 or 6 months of praying through that, the Lord led us to foster care. And we began fostering newborns for Bethany Christian Services. It made absolutely no sense for someone to dive into the deep end, when you've got 3 littles at home. It made no sense to anybody. Right. And the Lord said, doesn't matter if it makes no sense to anybody. This is what I've called you to do. And so in my own inadequacies, and this has been a theme throughout the last 33 years, in my own inadequacies and my own inabilities, in what I feel like I don't have the capacity to do or the talent to do or this or that, the Lord has shown up in ways beyond my wildest imagination to lift me up, to get me through grief, to hold my hand, to have me in his sights. And that calling has morphed, it's evolved, it's changed, it's grown from that first day. And so that was the genesis of it all. back 33 years ago.
Wow, I love that. That is really beautiful. And let me just before I don't want to move past that too quickly because you're talking about it did make sense. You know, you're
Right,
already sleep deprived, you're already overwhelmed with
right.
the care of three littles. You're adding to that. How did the Lord meet you and sustain you in those seasons?
There was such a sense of just deep calling that has been the continuum all these years, even in times when I've gone to bed and covered my head. I
Mm,
never questioned what he had called me to do. Now, there have been times I've questioned what does the next step look like, and
yeah,
we've talked about that. Where do I go next?
sure.
And times of seeking and waiting and wondering and praying. But in those moments of being up with a newborn at night, there was a sweetness to the whole process. There was just this ability to know that I was sitting right in the center of his will, whether anybody else believed that or not.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in church one day, years later, as we were still fostering newborns, and just thinking selfishly and kind of a pity party, nobody gets this. Nobody understands that. And
Mm,
it was just like this settle over me that said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if nobody gets it.
yeah.
This is you and me. This is you and Jeff and me. This is your family. And walk in it, whether anybody understands it or not.
That's so good. I love that. And just the confidence that comes from
Hmm.
making his voice the loudest in
Right.
this calling, I think is so important. And we highlight that a lot on the show because there are so many
Mhm.
voices,
Yes.
well intended and not well intended that
Right.
speak into this type of calling. And, a conversation I was having yesterday of the enemy hates this. The enemy hates
Absolutely.
it when families step in to love
Yes.
children who are not being loved well by their original families for
That's right.
various reasons. And so there's going to be all kinds of negativity that's going to cause us to
Yeah.
question. So to make
Yeah.
his voice the loudest is so, so important. I want to ask you, Chrissy, too, just with your husband, you made this decision together. You're in this
Mhm.
crazy season together.
Mhm.
What did maintaining a healthy marriage look like for you as you committed to this together?
Well, I think, early on, Jeff, it was not his calling. I will say that. It was not his
Okay.
calling. And he'll say that too.
Yeah.
Um, but I was his priority.
Mm,
And as we began this together and as he said yes, um, it became his calling. And the
okay.
Lord would interweave really remarkable things into his faith and into his journey. And even though it looked different then for him, and it looks different now for him,
Yeah.
he is my biggest cheerleader. He is the one who is the undercurrent of firm foundations for me, and who listens to my crazy ideas and over the top nuttiness that I want to do,
I love it.
and embraces it. And so it's been, I know in the early days, one of the hardest things for me, and this is just a little example, one of the hardest things for me is when a baby was placed for adoption. I would go, obviously go to the office and take the baby and all the things, but I had to leave with an empty car seat.
Yeah.
And for my own emotion, that was crushing. And so what
Mm,
he started doing is he would literally run out to the car ahead of me, throw that car seat in his trunk if because we would usually meet there, and I
yeah.
wouldn't have to see it. And so it just
Wow.
those simple things that just supported me and loved me well. And he continues to do that after 42 years of marriage, which is crazy. I still feel like I'm in my 30s. How can I be married 42 years?
I
But
love
yeah, it's
that.
been beautiful. It really has.
What a great example of something so simple that he's sensitive
Mhm.
and attuned to your heart as your
Yes.
spouse to serve you in
Yes.
that way. And you bring up a really great point talking about this is a beautiful calling, but it's still really hard. And
Yeah.
and we as the mother figure, we just
Mhm.
automatically, our hearts attach, and we go towards
Right.
kind of that permanency mindset. And you wrote a book about this called The Middle Mom. And the
Yes.
concept is how to grow your heart by giving it away. And that is probably, and I'm sure you hear the same thing, it is the toughest part about considering foster care and
Yes.
even adoption because of the risks that are associated with it of I couldn't love a child and
Right.
give them away. I couldn't
That's right.
attach to this child and then see them go back to whatever that might look like. And so I want to give you a lot of space, Christie, to speak to that. You've lived it.
Yeah.
You watch
Yeah.
families go through it every single day. You advocate for it. So talk about
Mhm.
just the impact and the importance of saying yes to being a middle mom
Mhm.
if that's what the Lord is
Yeah.
calling you to.
Well, I think, the very first baby we had him for 10 days. And he actually just turned 32 about 3 weeks ago. And
Wow.
we got him straight from the hospital. And I immediately fell in love with him and with every other child that's been in our home.
Yeah.
But at the end of that time, we walked into the office and um, his adoptive family had only been open for 2 months, and they were selected by the birth mother because of their age and because they had an older daughter, which really should have disqualified them on a lot of data,
Sure.
but they were selected. And I heard weeping in the other room, and I thought, what in the world? And it was this dad weeping at the thought of adding this precious son to his family. And
Wow.
I got back in the car and I came home, and I just didn't understand why I was so devastated. And I cried and I was grieving and I was trying to function with my kiddos. And then the Lord began to share with me that, my grief is part of the sacrifice. My
Mm,
grief is part of what I offer to him when I stepped out into this space. And
wow.
even though it is not fun, it is part of it. And I also think, people, one of the things that, and you will understand this as well, people say to foster and adoptive families, especially foster families, I could never do that, I'd get too attached.
Yes.
Well, that started really grating on my nerves. And I am not a confrontative person. I would never say anything ugly to anybody or even step into that. But I did think, that's exactly the people that need to be fostering, because
Mm,
what our precious kiddos deserve is for me as a mom to throw open my heart and my arms and to just love with abandon, to
yeah.
just to just put myself out there to embrace them in the nurture and love that God has given me to do that with. And they deserve nothing less than that.
Yeah.
And so if that is the case, then yes, we're going to go to bed in grief. And yes, we're not going to understand when they go back to a place that maybe we wouldn't have chosen.
Right.
But we also have to believe, and I remember Jeff started keeping pictures in his Bible as we moved to do foster care through the state, because he realized that for many of the kiddos, he was going to be the only father they'd ever know.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be able to take them to the Heavenly Father.
Yeah.
And so it's a profound honor to be able to do that. Now, is it pretty at times? No, we know it's not. It's hard. It's hard and beautiful.
Yeah.
And so it's a gift, but it's a gift that comes with sacrifice.
Yes. That is so powerful, honestly, because ultimately what you're guiding us through is shifting the focus off of ourselves and onto the needs of
Absolutely.
others, which is the greatest
Absolutely.
commandment, love thy neighbor as thyself. And these children
Yes.
qualify scripturally
Mm,
as our neighbor, to love them
that's
as
right.
ourselves, to sacrifice what might be hard and uncomfortable if God is calling us
Mhm.
to it. And he
That's
will
exactly.
comfort our hearts in the midst of all of
Yeah.
that. That is so powerful, and that's a gut punch right there, but it's one that we
Mhm.
need. We need that
Mhm.
perspective, even for us, those of us who have achieved permanency
Right.
through adoption. There is still a lot that we carry, the grief of our children on behalf of the
That's right.
brokenness of their story, all the different things, and it can't be about us. And that was
No.
not something that I
No.
understood when I became an adoptive mom. And
Right.
the Lord has really had to break my heart in a lot of ways to help me to
Mhm.
see that Summer, it's not about you. It's not
Right.
about us. It's about his plan for each of us and how we experience
Yeah.
this. And this, unique and an incredible calling. I'm just so appreciative of voices like yours who highlight that in the importance of that. We need more of that in this space, I think, and especially for those who don't understand this calling, who don't live it every day.
Mhm.
You hear those default scripted responses every
Right.
single time. So to be able to answer with grace, it's not about me. It's about what the
Right.
Lord has called us to do. So, now, Christy, the
That's
cool part
exactly it.
is, in the midst of all of this, you're stewarding these children. You are
Mhm.
serving as those middle parents, pointing these kids to the
Mhm.
Lord, showing them that love with reckless abandon. But
Mhm.
eventually, adoption did become a part of your story. So, share with
It
us a little bit
did.
about that.
It did. And as I alluded to earlier, how adoption, not adoption, but how this process began to weave itself into Jeff's faith.
Yeah,
We made the move to foster through the state of Arkansas, and the first little girl that we had, adoption had come up before with us, and it was just as if the Lord said no. And so there, we just thought, well, our place is in the middle. I'm the middle
right.
mom. He's the middle dad, and we're going to move forward with that. But we welcomed this precious little 14-month-old, our very first placement with the state. And she was not available for adoption. We were on the reunification train, as we well should be, and moving that direction. And Jeff, every Saturday morning, would take her to go get a donut or a sausage biscuit or something, and they'd come and sit at the counter and eat breakfast together. And one day, as he was sitting there, he looked over at her and he said, the Lord just said to him, as not previously and never before, you're going to adopt this child.
Mm.
And he didn't tell me that for 6 months. And
Oh, wow.
her story went every way. It was like a poster for everything that could and could not go wrong with something inside the system.
Yeah.
And yet 3 years later, we added Serenity to our family. And we had to laugh because we were like, Lord, you couldn't have done this when we were in our early 30s and we're starting
Right.
this. You had to wait till we're in our 40s.
Exactly.
And we've had a lot of laughter. She's 22 now, and she is a light and a joy, and the Lord just continues to confirm in our lives, and then he wasn't through. We added a son to our home, and so our kiddos are now age 38 down to, he'll be 17. Edward will be 17 on Friday. So
Oh, my goodness.
a big bundle of family circus, and yet such an incredible gift to us, and just shows you that, your timing, your plans. Our friends have been empty nesters for 20 years, and we're not, and we may never be, and that's okay,
Yeah.
because God has blessed us in ways that we just could never have imagined.
That's incredible. I love that. And yes, his timing is perfect. And we wrestle with that, because
We
we do.
do.
We create these plans and we have this idea of
Mhm.
the beauty of adoption, and we don't always factor in the Lord's sovereign, and he's
That's
got a
right.
plan individually for each of our kids and each of our families. And
Amen.
I love that. I love hearing all the different stories and the way that God brings
Yeah,
families together. And
absolutely. I
Christy,
do
I
too.
know I want to speak to this because I think it's important. We discuss the beauty a lot, and we advocate for the beauty a lot, but we also walk through hard with our
Right.
kiddos as
Right.
they are processing their own stories, their own grief,
Hmm.
their own traumas, if you will. So,
Yeah.
will you share with us a little bit of just what that has looked like for your family and how you have navigated those hard seasons with your forever kids as a family?
Right. I think it's another time when we feel totally inadequate at times.
Yeah.
We don't have the answers, but I will say to adoptive parents, especially, your child's, and you know this, but it's sometimes good to hear, your child's life did not begin the day the judge signed that decree. Your
Yeah.
child had a life before that. And if we, as their parents, don't value that life before that and the family that they came from, if we don't respect that, if we talk negatively about that, if
Yeah.
we don't walk in a way that shows them that we embrace their whole self from beginning to now, we're not really loving them to the depth that we need to love them. And this became
Great
very
point.
clear to me when Serenity was about 10. She was a live wire and didn't like to sleep. And I had said, it's time to turn off, whatever was popular back then.
Sure.
And she, for the first time ever, and I know she wouldn't mind me sharing this, for the first time ever, she said, I wish you weren't my mom. And I wish I was back with my other mom.
Yeah.
And I walked out of the room and I went into the hallway and I just breathed. And I was like, okay, Lord,
Yeah.
this is a moment. This is a moment.
Yeah.
And my feelings weren't hurt, but it was kind of startling. And so
Sure.
I walked back in and she had a wall up, she was like, and I said, sis, I said, you know what? She said, no. I said, you owe me an apology. And she said, mm. I said, you owe me an apology for being disrespectful. I said, but you know what you don't owe me an apology for? She said, no. I said, you do not owe me an apology for saying you wish you were with your other mother,
Mm.
because I would feel the same way and you deserve to be with her.
Wow.
But because of circumstances, that was not a possibility. And God stepped in and allowed me to step into that space. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's exactly how I said it, but immediately this wall just fell down
Wow.
and it opened the door to her understanding that I, as best I could, I hadn't walked that road. I wanted to understand and
Yeah.
was doing my best to understand. And I don't think she ever said that again, which is so strange. But
Wow.
and her situation's different from Edward's, and I won't get into his story, but it was it was a tough one, and he almost died as a 5-month old, and so
Mm.
there have been ramifications from that, and things that we have dealt with and that he has dealt with,
Yeah.
and yet, in the hard, we just trust that God is going to lead us. And he is just a delight. He is so precious and smart. And ever since he was a little bitty boy, people have wanted to know him and come up to on the beach to meet him. I mean, just crazy stuff.
Oh, wow.
And so, but it also has given me the ability to have some quote street cred, if you will, when I'm
Sure.
working with adoptive families and when we're reaching out through Project Zero to help find families for waiting kids, because I'm not doing it just from a professional standpoint.
Right.
I'm doing it from a deeply personal mama standpoint.
That's right.
And so, I praise the Lord for that, because had I not walked that way through foster care, through adoption, through living it every day,
Yes.
I wouldn't have the same perspective that I have.
That's exactly right.
So,
Yes. Hey, Call to Love families. It is no secret that parenting is busy. Chaos happens before the morning coffee even finishes brewing most of the time, but that is why our friends at Christian Parenting created Morning Minute, a concise, scripture rooted daily email for busy parents. It's a quick pause at the start of your day. Each weekday morning, you'll get one verse to strengthen your spirit, one parenting insight grounded in Christ-like wisdom, one short action item to guide your heart and your kids, and one resource to help you go deeper. It takes just 3 minutes to read, but the encouragement lasts all day, and it's free, so you don't want to miss out. Subscribe now at morningminute.org to get this quick encouragement in your inbox every weekday. That's morningminute.org, or click the link in today's show notes. Well, and that's a perfect segue, because I want to dive into Project Zero and just the incredible impact that it
yeah.
has had and continues to have here in our state. And now it's kind of going viral, Christy, and I'm really excited about that. So take us a little
Yes.
bit back to when the Lord prompted you to begin the mission of Project Zero, and take us through the journey of where you are
Okay.
now.
Oh my goodness. Well, after 19 years of fostering, and in the middle of that, I became I didn't even know what they did, but I became the co-chair of this coalition in our county that was doing the Heart Gallery, which are professional photos of waiting kids and some things. And about the time we got our 501c3 status, all of these coalitions around the country just stopped because of whatever funding from the government, all this
Oh,
kind of
wow.
stuff. So about that time, I was down in Austin at a conference, and a foster care and adoption conference, leading a breakout session. And Jeff and I were sitting in, listening to the messages, and a pastor said, if Christians were doing what we should be doing, there would be 0 kids in foster care waiting to be adopted.
Yeah.
And I got home and I literally could not shake that one statement.
Yeah.
And so the coalition, we were already a 501c3. It was dead. And Jeff just said, why don't you just rename the coalition? It's gone. Why don't you go to DCFS, talk to them, and why don't you call it Project Zero? And so it was him. It was Jeff that said
I
that.
love
And
it.
so we started 14 years ago. We went to the state. We started Project Zero and we decided we knew we needed to be very strategic. And so the kind of the tenants that we had then, we have today. Now they're on steroids now, but
Yeah.
it was, raise awareness about the need. So the first thing we did is something crazy. We went to Nashville. We cut an album. Well, it did not win any Grammys because we didn't know anything about cutting an album, but we had a great producer. We had great artists. It just, anyway, so raise awareness. We do that through the Heart Gallery. And then we have exhibits that travel the state. We have the online gallery where inquiries come from every state. And I think last year, 34 foreign countries. So we're answering those inquiries about our waiting kids. And then about 11 years ago, we decided that if hearing the number of waiting kids moves you, if seeing their faces compels you, what would it mean to give them a voice and to
Mm.
allow them to share their own stories in their own words, as much or as little as they want to? So
Yeah.
we started working with filmmaker Nathan Willis, who is now an Emmy Award winner,
So
which
cool.
is crazy.
Yeah.
And he lives in New Orleans now. He used to live in Little Rock. And so he comes in, we shoot short films. We allow kids to talk about who they are, what they want in an adoptive family, what they like to do. And sometimes these are fun and light. And other times a child will say, I just want to be hugged. I haven't been
Yeah.
hugged in years.
Yeah.
And we will stop filming, get up and hug this child. And so you cannot sit in that little makeshift studio and not be radically changed.
Yes.
And so we have seen just a transformation of our numbers of waiting kids based on, one, the raising awareness,
Yeah.
two, giving kids a voice. And then the second thing is we build hope in waiting kids, and we do that all kinds of ways, through birthday parties, through taking them to lunch, through events that we host. And then the last thing is we work very closely with DCFS, Arkansas DCFS, every day, to help connect waiting kids to the right forever family. And when I say it like that, what I mean is any old family is not good enough. It
Right.
needs to be the right forever family. They
That's right.
deserve to have the best that we have to offer. And so we're working closely with them to do that, and have been honored and really humbled to be a part of over 1,500 adoptions in the last 14 years.
Oh my
And
goodness.
some of those have been a long time coming. The last 2 years, God has just rained down from heaven. And we have seen our two longest waiting. They actually both were teen boys. One last year, Jose had been waiting 15 years.
Yes.
This year, our Cozy, which is our
Cozy.
word for this Christmas, Cozy Christmas,
Yes.
had been waiting almost 15 years. And both of them are now sons. Their picture
Oh
is
my
not,
gosh.
their pictures are not in the Heart Gallery. Their short films are not on the website. They are sons. And so
Yeah.
to get to be part of that, and to, as I said many times, not feel like I have what it takes. But the Lord, there was a footnote in my Bible that said he does his greatest work through frail people. And I was like,
Amen.
that's it. And
Yeah.
and this year, the scripture that has resonated with me, because it's been a beautiful year, but it's been a tough year, is
Yeah.
the scripture in Isaiah that said, the Lord will continually guide you. He will satisfy your desire in scorched places and give strength to your bones. And
Mm.
you will be like a watered garden and like a stream of water whose waters never fail. And I've had some scorched places this year. I've had to pick out a casket spray for an 18-year-old
Mm.
and tell them, you know, we don't want lilies. We want it to be bright and beautiful, like a homecoming bouquet,
Yeah.
And I've walked, we've had a jail cells, we've had just tough stuff. And then we've stood in courtrooms when adoptions were finalized and the judge started blowing horns, and just so the beauty, the scorched places that then become watered gardens have been
Yeah.
so profound this year and so
Mm.
beautiful. And I just can't say it enough how grateful I am to the Lord for walking this journey and for allowing me to give waiting kids a voice and to
Yes.
be part of their stories. It's so humbling, and our team is we're just constantly humbled by that fact.
Yes, absolutely. I thank you so much for sharing that, Christy. I am so blown away as well. I've been so honored and privileged to get to be present at a lot of the luncheons, these awareness events, even so much our church hosted some of the video shoots
Yes,
as
yes.
I stepped into this career as well. So sitting in those
Mhm.
rooms and listening to
Mhm.
teenage boys say, "Don't try to butter me up with gifts. Just spend
Yeah,
time with me.
that's
Just
right.
see me." Play basketball with me. Tell me the rules. I want to hear them. I want to
Yes.
know. I just want to be a part of a family. I love this concept that the Lord has placed on your heart and how powerful it has been for you to give these kids a voice. It is
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
important. And to be able to, you were talking earlier about your daughter just breaking down those walls
Mhm.
and giving opportunity for walls to come down on both sides,
Right,
for these kids to
right.
feel seen, advocated for, but also for families out there with
Mhm.
a longing that they haven't quite seen
Yes,
fulfilled yet to
yes.
connect with these children. Christy,
Right.
I got to ask you, you talked about Cozy and I had followed Cozy's
Mhm.
story for a long time. That was incredibly
Yes.
impactful. And guys, I'm going to tell you right now, you need to get on Christy's social media and follow her every single day because she tells all the
Oh,
stories and you
thank
need to
you.
watch these special videos because they are
Mhm.
so inspiring. But I would love to hear from you, maybe just one of your favorites over the years that has just really stuck with you, maybe one that's fueled you on the hard days.
Well, there are so many, but I want to tell you about what happened last night, and this is crazy.
Okay.
We have a 16-year-old boy named David, and David has high functioning autism, and he loves us, and we love him. And he follows us on Instagram, and so he'll message me before events and say, "Are we going to have Dr. Pepper tomorrow?" And I'll be like,
Oh,
"Yes, we will have Dr. Pepper tomorrow." So anyway, we began to our little team. There was a little group of us that we work together, our DCFS partners and us, and there's like 4 or 5 of us, and we started talking about what does it look like? What kind of family does he need? And he wanted to stay in the area where he was because he had a plan for high school. And I'm condensing this down very short.
I love it.
But he always carries 2 little stuffed animals in his shirt. And he decided he wanted his short film redone because he didn't feel like he was able to share everything. And we're like, come on, we're going to do it. So about a month
Oh,
ago or 2 months ago, we redid a short film. He took his animals out. He wanted to just present. He taste tested a new Dr. Pepper for the audience. And he just is just delightful.
oh,
Well, I knew that coming soon, a family was having disclosure about David. And we found out
okay.
last week that they put their yes on the table for our David.
Love it.
So yesterday, our DCFS permanency outcome specialist traveled to where he was. We had given her all of his old heart gallery photos, and she sent a quick little clip of the photos. And on the last one was our family found sticker that we put on the heart gallery. So
Yes.
she said, my thought is I'm going to give him these pictures and I'm going to film him as he looks. So
Oh,
last night, she goes to see him. She says, "Hey, I've got something for you." She gives him these heart gallery photos. He's laughing. "Oh, my photos!" And he gets to the last one, doesn't even notice the family found sticker. He said, "Oh, that's the one I just did." And she said, "Well, what is that?" And he said, "Bro, no,
oh,
no, no." And he said, "I get to stay here where I am. The family's here." And after that, they went to dinner. He got to meet the family. They got to have pizza. And then I was actually at the hospital with my dad, and I get a FaceTime call from David. And I answer, and he is just a ball of light. And he's like, "I'm not going to be at Candyland Christmas." And I was like, "You're not?" And he's like, "I have a family."
oh.
And it was the most, I don't know, he's been waiting for years, probably 4 or 5 years, and
Mhm.
so he has a family, and that is what it's about. It's about, and this family. He said, my new mom has a personality like me. I mean, he was just so engaged in that. And then
So
he
amazing.
commented, he commented on our Instagram last night about how he had about given up on God, that God was going to do anything for him.
Wow.
And so to see that, anyway, I have many, many more we do not have time for, but that
Right.
was just at top of mind today.
Yeah.
Our David, and if please pray for the adjustment. We know it's a big adjustment. We know what we're asking folks to do,
Yeah.
and how beautiful that this family has said yes, and how powerful it is for a child to know, a teen to know how precious and valuable they are, how
Mm.
much love they are, and that we and our partners at DCFS and are going to pray them through. We're going to fight until we can't fight anymore, or until we reach zero. And so
Right.
it's just, it's a beautiful thing.
Oh my goodness, Christy, I love that, and I saw your post on that, so I love that you told that story. I follow all of
Yeah.
her posts pop up for me, and it just keeps you going. And honestly, for this audience, I'm telling you, if that doesn't just make you want to jump up and go out and make a difference, check your pulse,
Mm.
because that is just incredible to me. And
So
but
beautiful.
so I know a lot of our listeners are probably going, all right, that's it. This is my confirmation. This is the shove, the
Right.
holy loving shove that I needed to just step into this.
Right.
But you talked about the right family. And I think
Yes.
that's important. So, Christy, I don't want to end this conversation, with your permission, without you just sharing a little bit about the importance of preparing your home and your
Right.
hearts as parents, especially if you're feeling led to pursue waiting kids in adoption who have had, as you shared earlier, a
Yeah.
whole life before. And some of that's really hard, and that has effects on the brain, the body, and the behavior. And so there are
Absolutely.
special considerations to be
Mhm.
aware of as you step into this, so that you can facilitate healing and not further harm. I mean, let's just be
Right.
honest. And so,
That's right.
Christy, what advice would you give for some of our listeners who maybe they're taking steps down that path, or they really
Mhm.
feel compelled by the Lord to take steps towards waiting children in foster care in their own areas?
I love that. And well, first of all, if you're on that journey, thank you. We cannot get to zero, and by that I mean find families for every waiting child in this country without you. So thank you. Second, I would suggest, as you said a minute ago, Summer, it's not about us. And
Yeah.
so when we internalize that truth, that it's not about us, it changes a lot of our perspective. And
Right.
so while you're waiting, while you're getting open, all of those things, look into trauma, become trauma informed. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean you have to watch everything or listen to everything or read everything, but do familiarize yourself with what it means for a child to come from a hard place.
Yeah.
And don't say to yourself, that's not going to happen in my home. That's not the way we do things. That's not, because inevitably it will be, and it
Right.
will be the way you do things. And
Yeah.
and then just recognize that you can't do this on your own. You
Yes.
need God moving in your life. You need him to give you the resources and the wisdom you need. You need other people surrounding you. You need people like Summer and this podcast to pour into your life and to let you know you're not alone. It
Yes.
gives you validation to know that there are other moms and dads walking through what you're walking through. But on the front end, to be quite honest, I have unfortunately seen adoptions fail because of people's expectation and the expectations they put on a child who doesn't understand or have the ability to walk into those expectations and live them
Right.
out.
Yes.
So just realize that you have bigger fish to fry than whether your child gets smiley faces at school, for
Yeah.
instance, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. You've got a heart and a soul that's counting on you to lead them, to
Yes.
nurture them, to love them unconditionally, and to never give up. And
Mm.
that is tough. That
Yes.
is tough. There are times when it is beyond tough. And those are the times when you are on your face and you're asking the Lord, what do I do? Those are the times when you reach out for godly counsel, yourself, your kids, everybody, to find what you need to do. And then the beauty in that is the Lord hears and the Lord answers. And just like he sets the lonely in families, he is able to heal and to, there are consequences for things that happen. And some
Right.
of those are lifelong. I'm not going to hide that. They are
Right.
lifelong.
Yeah.
But there are ways for him to move, and we just have to be open to that and prepare ourselves and realize it's not about us.
Yes. Amen and amen. That's such good wisdom. I mean, truly to enter in with that perspective. I wish I had that. If I could
Yeah.
rewind and go back to the
Yes.
beginning of my
Agreed.
journey, and the Lord, he's so good and so gracious to teach us
Yeah.
along the way, but
Oh,
to have
amen.
voices like yours speak that truth into us. And it's a great reminder for this adoptive mama today and the host of today's show.
Me
Like I
too.
I love hearing that. And it is so beneficial. Christy, as I shared earlier, this really has gone viral. I mean, other states are catching
Yes.
on, other countries are catching on. They're seeing this. They're wanting to take action. They're wanting to pursue children for their own families. So, what advice would you have for? Because our listenership, we're very blessed. We
Yes.
reached multiple countries. I think we're in 36 countries and every country or
Wow.
every state here in the U.S. And so we're very
Amazing.
fortunate. So people are like, how do I do this? Where do I
Yes.
start? If that's where they're feeling led.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, you can reach out to us because we're happy to point you in the right direction in your state. But in America, we do not do international adoptions. We love that we have inquiries from all over the country. We had one from Nigeria yesterday about one of our
Oh my
boys,
gosh.
and
Wow.
we just love that, and we want those to keep coming because it nurtures us, and it just is a blessing for us to know you're praying for us. But if
Yeah.
you're in the United States, I would suggest getting on your local DHS, and there should be a link that says adoption. Click on that. It'll start you through the process. If you can't find that, reach out to us at info@theprojectzero.org or on our social media, and we will be happy to find you a link to get you started. And then once you're open and approved, you can inquire about kiddos in your state, and you can inquire about kiddos that are available for out-of-state adoption in other states. So your
Okay.
first step is to become open and approved. There are a lot of private agencies that do that. I know in our state there are, and they are amazing. And so hopefully you'll have some links in there that will point you in that direction. But never
Absolutely.
hesitate to reach out, and we're happy to help because we love talking about waiting kids, and we want to do
Absolutely.
everything we can to get them home.
That's exactly right. And y'all, she means it. Okay. I've seen this team in action and they are go getters and they are incredible advocates for these kids. And
Oh,
so take her up on her offer and reach out and learn more. And most definitely, we will have all of those links in today's show notes so that you can access those quickly and easily. And as I said
yeah.
earlier, go follow Christie's account on social media because it is inspiring every single day. And ultimately, even if this isn't where you're feeling led by the Lord, please pray. As Christy said
Please,
earlier, please
please.
pray for her team, pray for her leadership, pray for these children. They are not
Yes.
just here at Arkansas, they are everywhere. They are in your community. You
Yeah,
are passing them more than you realize as you go
that's
about your
exactly.
daily life.
Wow.
And so, for the Lord to just create this awareness, I think is so impactful for the body of Christ to be lifting them up in
Oh,
prayer, to feel
yes.
seen, and for the Lord's loving hand to be on them. It's just, I know
Amen.
that is your burden, Christy. It's mine as
Yes.
well. And so we are so grateful for the work that you do. I love this conversation. We got to do it again. I want to hear more stories and more of your
Thank
perspective.
you.
But for now, I think this is a beautiful place to land. And listeners, if you've been
Absolutely.
blessed by Christy, if you've got follow-up questions or just something that has, just spurred something in you that you want to know more, there is also an email address that comes directly to me in the show notes. And I check those every single day and respond to those personally. I would love to hear from you if you have any further thoughts or questions related to today's conversation. So, Christy, I am so grateful for your friendship. I'm so grateful for your lived example through your calling and especially for your time in this conversation today. Thank you for blessing
Um,
us.
Thank you, Summer. Love you.
Thank you so much for listening to Called to Love today. I love to hear from listeners, and so I would love to connect with you to hear your stories and answer your questions right here on the show. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, send me a direct message, or send me an email at the link in today's show notes. I pray you have been encouraged by today's episode to walk in faith and continue to embrace your own call to love. Until next time, blessings, sweet friends.